Good morning, and welcome to a probably should have been planned out but not edition of 30-minute reviews about some of the cool stuff going on in the world of video games today, as you can hear from our snazzy new audio intro for video game episodes. This is because I have Wonder Dinosaur from Wonder. Not an ad, but if you do need to make music for any reason, Dinosaur is great. And by using it to make more music for, the podcast, I get to defer the costs a little bit. I get to split it off into multiple, multiple places where it's being used. It's being used for an upcoming project. There's an upcoming podcast project where cinematic music will be nice. And then there's an upcoming short that is a work in progress right now. It's not in production yet. Script is done. That is incredibly unsafe. Oh, okay. This person their car is damaged. So it seems that they really should call a cop to come and direct traffic on this 2-lane road. That would be the smart thing to do. Maybe it's just me. But anyway, because it's like I didn't see this car had its hazards on, and I saw an oil tanker drive around it, and I'm like, what the fuck? That is very not safe. So the short project, details coming soon on that. Okay, he got into an accident. Details are coming soon on that. And when we have those details, we will address further what is going on. I'm very happy with the project. I'm also going to make a special theme music for Beware. We have a new theme music for Beware Spoilers for horror movies. I feel like that's the easiest one to differentiate, and because I cover them so infrequently. But at the same time, if I did it for every genre, it's like, okay, so we're going to do it today. Today we're doing it for science fiction. And it's like, okay, so every Star Wars episode is going to have its own theme music. Like, maybe not. We're here to discuss Sonic Frontiers, and then, if we have time, console exclusives, because two major console exclusives are going to PC. Two major Sony console exclusives are going to PC. Now, let's talk about, first and foremost, the Sonic Frontiers gameplay that was put out from IGN. Sonic Frontiers is the new open-world Sonic game, and I think it was either AV Club or Kotaku who put it best. They said it looks like a demo showing off Unreal Engine, and it looks very bland as a result. I agree. My problem with the game is that it is very obviously inspired by Breath of the Wild, because I think it's the same thing with any, art form or narrative form that we have, be it books, be it movies, be it television. Once someone, breaks the seal on a new, story type or a new, anything like that, there is everyone else tries to do it the same way. And video games will at least, there are positives and negatives to this, but video games at least will homage the original via calling it a blank light. So, a roguelike, or the 2D side-scrolling dungeon crawler, with the open world, as you collect more weapons or more abilities, more of the map opens up. That has a lot of backtracking. That's a Metroidvania. So it's, like Metroid or Castlevania. And I've talked about this in the past, where it's like, look, if I don't know what Rogue is, and I think that, a lot of the younger generation now probably doesn't know what Rogue is because it's an old-ass game. Like, it doesn't quite track. And it's like, at least with, like, you know, when we talk about movie genres, we can be like, you know, okay, it's a comedy, that's self-explanatory. Drama, self-explanatory. Romance, self-explanatory. Romantic comedy, self-explanatory. Science fiction, self-explanatory. But, like, if I said to you, what's a 4X game? And it's like, oh, so, I don't know. Like, like, odds are it'd be easier to say a Civilization-like, even though really the game that kind of created the modern 4X format is Dune 2 for the Sega Genesis. The game that really popularized it would be Sid Meier's Civilization, which is up to its 6th iteration plus DLCs at this point. And, you know, what we're seeing here is that, you know, Breath of the Wild wasn't the first to have an open world, but it was certainly the first to have an open world that was truly open-ended. And it appears now that, like, even, like, allegedly, and I'll believe it when I see it, because I think they said this about, you know, Legends Arceus too, but, like, Scarlet and Violet's going to have a true open world, where you can do the games in any order you want, and you don't have to worry about, you know, going the right way. Again, I'll believe it when I see it, especially considering they're introducing 4-player co-op multiplayer in this game, but I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's going to be, like, when the game comes out, I don't believe that's going to be the case. What else? What was the point of all of this? Sonic Frontier. So the trailer comes out, and it's like, look, Sonic's running around in this big open area. It looks a lot like Breath of the Wild. And I think that art style doesn't quite mesh with Sonic that well. Because it looks weird. Like, Breath of the Wild works because, at the end of the day, Breath of the Wild is a high fantasy game. Legend of Zelda is high fantasy. So taking Link, and putting him into this environment and making it look hyper-realistic, and where even the cartoony stuff kind of meshes in well, it works. Sonic is a giant blue hedgehog that's wearing bright red Nikes. I don't think that is something that meshes well with a hyper-realistic 3D world. It's one of those things that, like, we kind of forgave it in, like, what was that other game? Like, Adventure, where they had the open world, and it's like, oh, so it's just this 6-foot hedgehog kind of running around and everyone's kind of chill with it. Like, it's a little weird. And looking at, you know, what this game is and how this game kind of functions, I don't think this was the right first step for Sega to take in this direction. I think what Sega should look to for inspiration is not Breath of the Wild. I feel like Breath of the Wild is not the place for them to go. I think that, especially considering Sonic's thing is speed, and Sonic's thing is speed, and Sonic's thing is, like acrobatics and agility and, you know, flexibility to an extent. I think that where they should have gone first for inspiration, now granted, they wouldn't have been able to do it until this year, I think they should have gone to LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, which I just played recently, and it was a pretty fun game. The levels were a little short, but here's the thing that really struck me about it. You go from being in the world to being in the level with, like, a seamless transition. Like, you're going through and it's like, oh, am I in the level now? Am I in the world? What's going on here? Like, yeah, there are some places that are only accessible in levels, but at the same time, like, the way the missions are set up, it doesn't tell you that. And I think what game would have worked with that format would have been Sonic Adventure. We can do Sonic Adventure DX. But that game with that format where, you know, you're going around this open world and you're going, like, Central City, I think it was called. Maybe I'm just mixing that up with The Flash. Or Station Square. That was it. Station Square. You're there, and then you go to, what's the next one? Mystic Ruins, or the Egg Carrier. And it's like, you go to these places, and as you go, like, each world has its own little thing. And when you go into a level, rather than being like, oh, we have to switch out, oh, we have to, sit here and load a level separate, you just transition right into the level. Like, you go directly in. Like, all the levels are already loaded in when you start. Now, you can't do them in any order you want. You can put up artificial barriers to kind of keep people from going into levels they shouldn't, until they progress the story to a certain point. And then you can also do the switch out of characters. Now, that's something that would require a little bit more work, I would think, because each character has their own, their own little mini, each mission kind of plays a little differently for each character. I think each level is a different length and has different, has different, it definitely has different objectives, but even, like, the format of the levels is slightly different for each character, making it a little bit, like, that would be a little bit different, where it's, like, I think that, even Amy's level setup, definitely Big's level setup, but I think Amy's level setup especially, and Omega's level setup, are different enough where, where the level kind of would feel very different, if you were to play as them and switch from Sonic. I think Sonic, and Knuckles too. Really, it's only Sonic and Tails that have the same level setup, but either way, like, okay, so the world is the same except for what the levels are, but anyway, like, that would work. I think that would be a more fun way to go. And either way, they kind of did that with Lego Star Wars, where it's like each level had its own kind of, each world had levels to it that were, for each, what's what I'm looking for here? For each person, or each movie, but they weren't necessarily the same things. And I think you can make that work. That could work for this kind of game. And that would be a good test to see how well you can do open world. And I think bringing back the Chao Garden would probably go a long way towards getting fans on board in a weird way. I'm surprised they haven't yet, because I remember that being hugely popular when I was a kid, especially for the GameCube era, where they re-released the Dreamcast games. I remember it being hugely popular. But really what needs to happen is Sonic has had one game in the last, I would say since Heroes. And I think a lot of people didn't, I think I'm in the minority of people who did like Heroes. I think Sonic has had one good game since then, and I think that would be Mania. I've heard some mixed thing. Generations was cool, and I've heard interesting things about, what was that other one? Unleashed. But, like, there's no reason why there hasn't been another good Sonic game. And we have layouts for how a Sonic game could work in a 3D environment. Because Adventure and Adventure 2 are beloved. The stories are fucking batshit and ridiculous, but it is very interesting that we have these things now. And they just don't look to them for, like, okay, so how did this work? What was it that made this work? And now let's try to replicate that. And in the way, why don't we just, like, that would be my thing. It's like, okay, so look, we've had very few games in the past do well, and the last two that were like, where people actually loved every game we had releasing were these two. Let's remake them and see what happens, and see what happens. Like, let's remake these two games and see, and see if we can get to the bottom of what happened. We can do new market research. We can do all of this stuff. And it just makes the most sense to me. It's like, we know why Sonic, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, and Sonic and Knuckles are the games that everyone knows them to be. We know this already because they've been re-released time and time again. So releasing Sonic Retro is not going to give you any new insights about why the game is so, different and why the game is so loved. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, well, what is the point of this? and that's what I don't understand. And even they don't understand, I think, is part of the problem, because they released Sonic 4 Episode 1 and probably Sonic 4 Episode 2, probably like a decade ago, and those games weren't as well liked as, as Sonic and Sonic 2 and Sonic 3. So they need to adjust, and they need to look and see what the problem is, and I don't think anything in the gameplay here looks good. So, like, what else was there? Like, I think that's really all I have to say on this, and I'm going to talk briefly about, exclusivity, console exclusivity. I think, console exclusivity is the only thing that really differentiates the various consoles. PlayStation from Xbox from Switch. Without exclusives, these consoles wouldn't be what they are. And the video game industry thrives on FOMO. Without the fear of missing out and the fear of not playing a game immediately, the video game industry would not thrive, as evidenced by the fact that a game will come out, be $60, and then a year later will be down to $20. And like the rationale for that is that anyone who wanted to play it in the beginning has played it already, so they'll drop the price later on. Nintendo doesn't do that, because Nintendo is kind of like Disney in that regard, where it's like, we're going to charge top dollar for our shit. If you don't like it, tough shit, go somewhere else. Oh wait, you can't. With the Switch, you get that, and the Switch doesn't really have third-party games. And third-party games are the same for the PlayStation and the Xbox. So the thing that differentiates the two of them is, number one, which controller you prefer, which for me would be, I prefer the DualShock. And for other people, it would be the exclusive games. And for me, again, I prefer the PlayStation for that. The thing is, yesterday, they announced that this August 12th, I think is the date, they are going to be releasing the Spider-Man remaster for the PlayStation 5 of the PlayStation 4 version of the Fantastic Spider-Man game. That is going to be re-released on PC. To which I say, great. Because here's the thing about playing games on computer. If someone is playing games on computer, they, I think that, what's being realized now, as Sony is releasing more and more of their exclusives on PC, not on Xbox, but on PC, what they're realizing is that if someone's going to buy a gaming PC, they're not going to buy a console in either direction. They're not going to buy a PlayStation, they're not going to buy an Xbox. The game will come, or the game will be pirated and they'll play it then. So it's better to just release the game on Steam and on the Epic Games Store, or however else they're going to sell the game, than to just let the money sit on the table from the people who would play the game, but won't anyway. Meanwhile, if someone is going to buy a console, and they're not going to buy both, they're going to, if they're going to do that, then the question is, how do we convince them to do that? To convince them to buy ours. At which point, keeping your exclusive titles off of the other console is of paramount importance. And that's the difference. So, when a PlayStation game goes to PC, I don't think that's a bad decision. Because the PC player is going to play it anyway. It's just the difference is, they're going to pirate it. While if it goes to Xbox, that's where I think it's a little bit different. And I think the other thing is, too, the game is old at this point. The remaster is 2 years old. Because the remaster came out in 2020. Because Miles Morales came out holiday of 2020. So, if they're going to put that over, who gives a fuck? It doesn't impact you playing the game. And if you bought the PlayStation just to play Spider-Man, then I'm sorry, but, it's been 2 years. You played Spider-Man. You got you got your end of the deal. So what? You're gonna go buy an Xbox? No, you're not. Just don't complain about the exclusive titles going to the other console, or in this case, not even going to the other console. Because I don't think the PC market is necessarily the kind of thing that gets impacted in the way that, it appears to. So we'll wrap up there for today. I think that we've covered a lot of ground, and we unveiled the new theme music. And it is Game Fest, apparently. Game Fest is going on constantly. And there is a state of play that happened yesterday. That was just the biggest news that I got. There's a Final Fantasy 16 something coming as well. So that'll be fun to look at. That's coming next summer. So until then, we will wrap up there, and have a great rest of your week.